The Federal Privacy Council presents the Privacy Act of 1974. The Privacy Act is a cornerstone of federal privacy law. It provides rights and protections for individuals whose information the executive branch of the federal government requires to carry out its mission of serving the American people. In this video, we explore how the Privacy Act achieves that by restricting the information federal agencies can disclose about individuals, allowing individuals to access and amend information agencies have on them, establishing other fair information practices that regulate how agencies collect, maintain, use, and disseminate information about individuals, and providing mechanisms for enforcement. Let's start by reviewing what information the Privacy Act covers. The Privacy Act applies to information about individuals called records, which a federal agency maintains in a system of records. But what does that mean? First, let's address the who: federal agencies and individuals. Federal agencies in the executive branch must comply with the Privacy Act. Government contractors also must comply when operating systems of records to accomplish agency functions. The Privacy Act's rights and protections apply to individuals, which it defines as U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. Next, let's address the what: records and systems of records. A record, as defined by the Privacy Act, is information an agency maintains that both identifies an individual, such as their name, an identifying symbol or number, or other identifying particular, like a fingerprint or photograph, and includes information about that individual, such as their education, financial transactions, medical history, and criminal or employment history. A system of records is a group of any records under the control of any agency from which information about an individual is retrieved by the individual's assigned identifier. With those definitions in mind, let's discuss how the Privacy Act restricts the disclosure of records. The Privacy Act prohibits the disclosure of records in a system of records by any means of communication without an individual's consent. That means agencies must obtain an individual's written or electronic consent prior to disclosing their records. Agencies are required to keep an accounting of certain disclosures that includes when the disclosures were made and to whom. The Privacy Act outlines several exceptions to this requirement, including, for example, when disclosure would be within the agency and on a need-to-know basis, required by the Freedom of Information Act, pursuant to a court order, or compatible with the purpose for which it was collected and covered by a routine use included in the applicable system of records notice. Another way individuals can exercise control over how agencies use their information is through the Privacy Act's right of access and amendment. You may be familiar with the Freedom of Information Act, but the Privacy Act has its own independent right of access that allows individuals to review information about themselves maintained in a system of records. Moreover, if they believe any portion is not accurate, relevant, timely, or complete, individuals can request amendment of their records. Providing individuals with access and amendment rights is one of the many ways the Privacy Act embodies fair information practice principles. Its requirements for agencies also embody these principles, as we will now explore. The Privacy Act promotes transparency by requiring agencies to provide notice in various ways about how they handle individuals' information. For example, federal agencies are required to publish in the Federal Register Systems of Records notices, also known as SORNs, to notify the public of the existence and character of their systems of records. Another example of notice is the Privacy Act statement on forms that collect information maintained in systems of records. These statements inform individuals about agencies' practices for handling information, such as the authority for the collection and principal purposes for its use, so that individuals can decide whether or not to respond. The Privacy Act also has several requirements related to what information about individuals agencies handle and how to do so appropriately. For example, it requires information about individuals to be relevant and necessary to carry out an agency purpose required by law, obtained directly from the individual to the greatest extent possible, accurate, relevant, timely, and complete as is reasonably necessary to assure fairness to individuals in agency determinations, and without any description of how any individual exercises First Amendment rights, with certain exceptions. Handling information appropriately includes ensuring agency personnel remain accountable and good stewards of individuals' information. To that end, the Privacy Act requires agencies to establish rules of conduct for persons who handle records, as well as other appropriate administrative, technical, and physical safeguards. Regarding accountability, the Privacy Act includes both civil remedies and criminal penalties for violations. Individuals have a private right of action that allows them to hold agencies accountable when they believe their rights under the Privacy Act have been violated. Moreover, the Privacy Act includes provisions on criminal penalties related to mishandling records that apply to agency officers, employees, and contractors. In limited circumstances, agencies can claim exemptions from certain requirements in the Privacy Act, generally through rulemaking. That process includes providing notice to the public of the agency's proposal. The Privacy Act recognizes agencies' need for additional assistance with implementation. Congress assigned this responsibility to the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB. OMB releases guidance and provides ongoing assistance to agencies to help them understand how to apply the Privacy Act as the world changes. Now that we have explored the basics of the Privacy Act, if you would like to learn more, visit fpc.gov.